Hi everybody, welcome to Simply Scuba, and of course like and subscribe. Today I felt a little bit nostalgic and I typed scuba when into Google to answer some of the questions, and while only one of the questions actually turned out to be about diving history and when things happened, there were still some interesting questions. Is scuba diving seasonal? Sort of. It depends what you mean by seasonal. There will be busy months of the year and quiet months throughout the entire year, and they repeat obviously like most sports. A lot of divers, they prefer the warmer summer months for a summer holiday, but you also need to think about some other factors. If water temperature is the only thing that's important to you, then fine, just go diving in the summer in the warmer months and fill your boots. But if you want to see specific fish species, for example, they might not be there at that time of the year. Not all fish like the warmest waters, so they travel to colder waters, so you probably won't see them in the warmest time of the year. The sun can also bring algal blooms that can reduce visibility in the water. Warmer waters often bring students, which, no shame, we were all students once, can also reduce visibility because they haven't got their buoyancy quite down yet. A lot of divers tend to go on like one big trip abroad once a year to go diving somewhere fancy, and then they end up going diving at home throughout the rest of the year. So yes, you could describe scuba diving as seasonal, but of course you can still go diving out of peak season. The conditions might not be as warm, but you might have better experiences. Was scuba used in World War II? Yep. Scuba technology was definitely used in World War II, with all the enemy ships transporting supplies, troops backwards and forwards, shooting each other. Yeah, we definitely use scuba to get in, using rebreathers to sneak up to enemy ships without blowing any bubbles to give away their position. Divers would plant explosives or sabotage enemy ships in some way and then swim away. That's why international sales of things like rebreathers is closely monitored and actually illegal in some circumstances if you're sending it to certain countries, so that you're basically not sharing technology that can then be used against your country. Back in World War II, the technology was obviously less advanced than it was today, so divers had to stay pretty shallow to avoid oxygen toxicity, and British divers found that their steel cylinders would actually skew their compasses when they're navigating underwater, and they actually ended up starting to use captured German aluminium cylinders instead that they got from their aeroplanes, because then the aluminium wasn't magnetic, so it didn't skew their compasses. Another funny thing that actually came after the war, was that the main producer of rubber fins discontinued production of all of their fins after the war because they didn't think anybody would want to go diving in peace times. Why does diving make you tired? For a whole host of reasons. The first one is that you're carrying and handling all of the equipment before the dive, so you're lifting and you're working out before you even hit the water, so you're burning calories there. Actually, in the water, even just moving through water, which is quite a viscous material that you're just not used to, is so much harder. Air is nice and thin. It doesn't take much, if any, energy to move things around, but in water, you're constantly using a little bit more energy just to move around, and the more gear that you're wearing, it can restrict you in certain ways, and you have to fight against it as well. If you have a neoprene wetsuit and you're stretching, of course the neoprene is stretching, but it's also a bit like a rubber band and it's trying to pull you back, so you're constantly fighting against that, burning more calories. The water temperature itself around you is a huge factor. We're warm-blooded, so our body uses energy to keep itself warm, and when you're submerged, even in tropical, warm, nice waters, we're still hemorrhaging heat constantly, and our body is burning calories to constantly try to keep up and keep you nice and warm. While a lot of diving has the appearance of being chilled and laid back, and you're actually recommended to take it as easy as possible, there's no point fighting against a current or anything, diving can take a lot out of you, and that's why it's important to make sure that you, and especially your heart, is up to the task before the dive. Can you lose weight scuba diving? Yep, when used as part of a weight loss plan, you can totally lose weight while scuba diving. Now, don't expect to just watch the weight fall off you if you just take up scuba diving. You also have to consider the rest of your lifestyle, but scuba diving, when done safely, is a low impact and high energy consuming activity. Unlike other sports, contacts are pretty unusual unless you drop something on your foot, so it's less abuse on your joints like running or some kind of competitive sports. Just be careful of your back, obviously, when you're carrying your gear out of the water, because some of it's quite heavy and you don't want to do your back in. But yeah, you can totally use scuba diving or free diving to help you lose some weight. As I said just a minute ago, it burns a lot of calories just moving around and even being in the water, but it's a lot more fun than running on a treadmill, in my opinion. Can you scuba dive every day? Yes, as long as you stick to your dive profile, you plan your surface intervals and your diving depths and whatnot, you can totally dive every single day if you want to. But as we just learned, it can be quite tiring. I mean, a lot of liveaboards, they'll have 4 dives a day scheduled for 5 days, and very few divers actually complete every single dive on that trip, just because it's so tiring after a while. Now, if you reduce that to just 1 dive a day, sure, you can totally dive once a day if you really want to and if you feel up to it. The only day that you can't dive is the day before a flight. A few other things that are worth considering are deep tissue massages. If you've just been on a dive, it can actually release some of the dissolved gases too soon out of your tissues, so avoid that. If you randomly feel like climbing up a mountain or something, that's similar to being in an aeroplane because of the reduction in pressure, so skip the dive the day beforehand. But if you keep on top of what you're doing and you stick to your limits, then yeah, there's no real reason why you can't dive every day. You just need to consider what you're doing tomorrow sometimes, and sometimes the day beforehand, because alcohol and scuba diving don't really mix. But yeah, you can dive every day. And that's it for another week. If you have any questions, by all means, let me know down in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. And of course, head over to simplyscuba.com. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.